Okay. I doubt whether it would be much of a stretch on my part to say that most of us here are probably lovers of movies. Kindred folk for whom the craving of a wonderful flick offers the, albeit briefest, moments to escape the routine of everyday life. Indeed, it is these fleeting, memorable occasions that regularly extend an opportunity for us to step out of reality and into a world of villains and heroes where we can take down Goliath with a single stone in our sling. Wow. We can be the quickest draw or the virtuous swashbuckler. Yet, despite the recurrent efforts many of us make to infiltrate the echelons of the film industry, in truth, few of us succeed. But not so our two esteemed guests.
Oh,
God,
that was so
poetic. Thank you.
And thank you.
Gosh.
And just to put things into perspective, and to name just a few, our guests have collectively been in Dracula AD 1972, The Satanic Rites of Dracula, The Spy Who Loved Me, Carry On Girls, Star Crash, Cuba. We could go on and on. They've appeared in movies and television productions starring Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Vincent Price, Tom Baker, Martin Shaw, Robert Shaw, Horst Janssen, Roger Moore, Christopher Plummer, David Niven, Peter Sellers, Orson Welles. It's all ridiculous, the people they've worked with. Please, I know you've already given them a big round of applause. Please welcome Pauline Peart and Caroline Munro.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well deserved. Well, let's kick off with a question then. And I know you've probably had these questions 1,000 times, but guess what? I've never met you, and it's going to be a first time for me, and hopefully a first time for some others.
And so we're going to have fun, aren't we?
I hope so.
Let's make
that
it
sounds
fun.
wonderful. Let's start with you, Pauline. You started in the industry at the tender age of 20, if my research is correct.
Yes.
What led to this happening?
I had this opera singer, pianist that I used to go to for lessons. His wife, Memorabilia, was the manager. And she said, I have a film that I'm putting up a few people for. Please go. And that's how I started. I went, I got the part, and I went, oh my God, I've never done this. Can I do it? Well, I just said, okay, I can't see anyone, so it won't matter. I'll just think they're all naked. I'm going to fall down, but that's okay. And I did. And when I went in my dress top, I had on a halter neck, and I stepped on the tail of the dress, and out came tits and everything.
No.
And I landed at the foot of the man who was casting, the director, the producer, and everyone, and I landed at their feet.
Wow, what an entrance.
And I got up and I said, I'm terribly sorry, you can't top this. Would you mind, hold on, and tied back the dress and said, okay, I'm here. What do you want to know? Wow. You've seen everything now. There's nothing more I can do. And he said, we're going to be doing this film, and we think you would be right. And I said, okay, yes, thank you. Would you like me to read for you? He says, not after that entrance. So I got the part, and I did it. And then I followed this lady around, and our friend Martine Beswick. Mm-hmm. And so wherever they went, I was behind them.
Together. We were together.
As well.
Yes. Very
Fantastic.
much together.
And, if my research is correct, was that the Fire Chasers?
That was the Fire Chasers.
For
yes.
Sidney Hayes.
Yes.
Who was the lead actor in that?
Oh, I don't know. He should.
I actually don't know. I've never seen the Fire Chasers.
Oh.
It was canned for about 15 years. I think they are trying to have it out.
What, re-release it?
Re-release it.
Oh, wow.
Warner Brothers did not want them to put it out because Michael Landon wasn't happy with...
Well, Michael Landon was in it. Michael Landon, that's interesting.
He was not happy with it because I was taller than he was. And he said, I don't like this. She's taken my scene. And I said, you must be insecure.
Yeah.
Because I'm a novice, I'm new.
Yeah. And
You've
very
been
young.
doing this all your life. So why would you be intimidated by me? But then I had an afro. You got to have an afro at that period.
Of course.
Okay.
So you really stood out.
There
A bit
you go.
like Sophie Loren and Alan Ladd, isn't it?
Oh, yes,
when they
indeed.
worked on The Boy and the
Yes.
Dolphin,
Yes,
one of my
yes.
favourite films. He had, because she was quite tall,
Even the
tall
insteps
lady.
weren't enough.
No. They had to dig a little thing for him. Yeah, little.
Amazing.
I'm sure you know that, all you movie buffs.
So
Yeah.
on to you, Caroline. And
Yeah.
similar question, actually, because I, unless, of course, the research is wrong again, it hasn't been so far.
No.
You wanted to study art
I
originally,
did.
but
Art was my
something
love.
got you into Smoke Over London in 1966.
Gosh, yeah, yes, it did.
What went from one to the other?
It's a very strange thing, but I did want to study art. The school that I went to had closed down, and I was 16, and I got
GSE at the time.
That's it, yes. Yes, thank you. Teeth. And I got art as my thing, and also French. But art was the thing I thought I'd do. So I went to Saturday classes at Brighton. I was living in Rottingdean, a tiny little old village down by the seaside. I'm a seaside girl, love the sea. And then, so I went to art school only on a Saturday, where I did my first. I remember that. It was life study, and you know life study is naked people. And I went to a convent school. So suddenly I was 16 and I was confronted by this naked, lovely, elderly gentleman. You know, he had a little drape going on somewhere down there. But that was my first, a bit of material, sorry. So that was my first encounter. Yes, and so I actually wasn't very good at art, but there was an art student friend there studying photography, and he asked me if he could take a picture, and I said, yes, that's fine.
And that ended up being with David Bailey, is that
Ended
correct?
up, David Bailey
Yes.
was running a competition, and it got Face of the Year, 1966.
Wow.
Scary.
1966.
Yes, for the Standard, the Evening News. Evening News.
Fantastic.
That's
Fantastic.
way back.
Thank you.
And that sort of was my foray.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, Pauline, I'm going to jump a few years to 1973, and there's a whole load of horror fans in here. You are in, I believe, the last Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Dracula, the Satanic Riots.
yes.
Now, how did you get this role? And give us some memories from that picture.
Well, I knew Roy Skeggs, the producer.
Oh, yes.
And I had done a commercial at Brace Studios. He was there then with Hammer when they started. And then he moved to Elstree. And he said, I'm doing this film. I will have you in it. Would you do it for me? At the time, I was doing a play with Maura Lissa called Birds of Paradise in the West End with Robert Coote. And then I did it, because the year before, Caroline was doing AD.
Yes.
I did,
72.
yes, 72,
And-
I did.
With the same director.
Yes.
Alan Gibson.
Yes.
Oh, yes, wow.
And
Great
so,
director.
as I said, I followed her around and Martine. And so I did it. And funny thing happened. I had to be chained in a cellar. And those suckers left me chained in a cellar. I was wet. Everything body-wise, there were clothes underneath, but it was a see-through dress. And they left me and went to lunch. They just said, we're going to pop out for a minute and get something. What would you like? And I said, anything. How about a hot dog? And they had me chained. And because it was plaster, they couldn't pull me out and take it off. They have to wait till the end of the day when the scene was shot and I'm in the cellar. So I got chained and left. And that's how Michael Coles, he thought it was the funniest thing. He would pop round and say, I see you're still there. You know, I can see your belly button. And I said,
Oh, no.
They took the mick out of me.
Oh.
So that was my Dracula. My scenes with another actor, what's his name? Sorry, I missed it at the moment. And Freddie Jones. I was doing another scene with Freddie where I walked in. They're in these robes like monks, and I walked in before where the lady was laying on the table at the altar, and they were going to kill her. And so when we did that scene, I was being like a priestess, sit there, and they're frightened of me because they don't know if I'm going to bite them or not. And I used to. I was very bad. I would just go, and the teeth would have blood. So when I bit them, the blood was running, and I really did bite them, I must say. So that was my experience.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And of course, the year before, Caroline, you was also in Alec Gibson's
I was.
Dracula
Yeah.
1972.
Yeah,
and,
I love
and
that.
this is no reflection on you guys because it's fantastic. But this was the last two Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was actually only 3, although they claimed to be 4, but it's just showing some footage from the previous.
Yeah. Sadly, the end of Hammer towards the end.
It was pretty close.
Yeah,
they were
it
on the
was.
decline.
They
then.
were.
But you had a magical period. Any fan of Hammer and horror is looking at those going, "This is Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing."
Yeah.
Career said that anytime he lose money on it, he was going to stop. And when Warner Brothers took over, they wanted a lot of changes, and he refused to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how Satanic became the last one.
Yes.
And it seems like I have done 2 films that were the last of. The Carry On Girls was the last. The Christopher Lee Dracula was the last.
Absolutely. We lost
But
Christopher Lee.
AD and Satanic Rite seems to be, I know lots and lots of the other earlier Hammer did very well.
They did.
Yeah.
And AD is still standing out there. Dracula is, Satanic Rites is still standing out there. They were a bit before their time.
They were before their time, and they've gained legs
Yes.
and audiences, younger
Absolutely.
audiences.
And they did Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, but that was like
Yes.
a pantomime anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're
wasn't
not
the
going to
same.
go there. This was
No.
kind of the end.
It
of the
was.
Hoyton,
classic
the
Dracula.
writer,
Yeah.
was just exceptional.
Although Captain Krenos, which wasn't Dracula, of course,
No.
but was actually, it was kind of out there as quite a unique subject matter, wasn't it? And
People didn't get it at the
gained
time.
a following and a cult now.
It has now, but they didn't get it because it didn't have the normal.
They didn't get it.
It was ahead of its time. I
Yes.
think it was too esoteric in a
Yes, I
way
think so.
because it didn't have nudity really, and it didn't have a lot of blood. So it wasn't the normal Hammer fare.
No.
It was a different kind of thing. So instead of biting, he would suck their youth, which I think was such a clever idea.
Absolutely,
and that
yes.
was Brian Clemens.
Yes,
I mean, he
of course.
wrote it and he directed it.
And a great writer.
Fantastic
Avengers,
writer.
Danger Man,
Yes,
Spectres,
yes,
Persuaders, all
yeah,
sorts.
did so, and it's Sinbad. He
He's
did our Sinbad.
He's only directorial.
Was that?
Movie.
And I remember
Yeah.
asking him at a show. I think I asked him. I said, "Well, why didn't you do more directing? Because you were fantastic."
He was.
Yes.
and he said, "I was never asked," which I can't believe. He said, "I was never asked." I said, "We should get back on that horse and do
Absolutely,
some."
but it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
No.
But they keep saying Cronus could be a remake, but I don't know about remakes. I'm not sure on remakes, but because it was meant to be for 3 films.
Oh, was it?
And because
It's gonna be
it
a
didn't do
trilogy,
well
yes.
at the box office at that time,
No.
it's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorites. He
He cites it as one of his favourites.
Yeah, so he's gleaned a lot
fantastic.
from that. If you remember some of the scenes, I don't know if you do, if you've seen Cronus, but he has when the sword switches and it turns that in Kill Bill. He does exactly the same shot with...
yes.
Yeah, he turns the sword and you see the eyes. Very clever.
Lovely.
Tarantino.
Fantastic.
So it's a nod.
So staying with you, Caroline, we go on to what for me is two of Britain's greatest movies. The Abominable Dr. Fives and Dr. Fives Rises Again. And you're playing the wife of Anton Fives, which of course is Vincent Price, the legendary Vincent Price. Directed by the very, very sweet, and we had this conversation
Very
outside,
sweet man.
and I can say that from experience. The very, very sweet Robert Fust.
He was the sweetest, almost too sweet to be in films in a way.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because he was very self-deprecating.
He was.
And very, very modest and maybe, I don't know, not insecure, but he was a lovely man to work with. Very gentle, very gentle as a director. And
again, they've become incredible cult movies. So give us some memories. Give us some memories from this.
You had Vincent Price. I mean, I was a teeny part in that. It's in fact, I had a contract with Hammer at the time for a year to do the two films, which I did. I did Dracula and The Cronus. But they asked me. Robert had asked me to do the film, and Hammer at the time, I was contracted. They said, no, you can't do it. And I said, well, I'd love to work with Vincent, just to be there with Vincent. They said, well, you can do it, but you have no credit. You're not allowed to have a credit.
That's why you're uncredited.
And I don't think I even got paid. I said, but I just want to do it, to be watching him. And I knew I had no dialogue, but just to be around that amazing man, to watch him work. Yeah. And I'm a bit of a sponge. I like to kind of sponge and, see what they're doing, if you know what I mean. So I found him fascinating to work with. Again, an extraordinary... I mean, the bigger they are, the bigger the star, usually the sweeter... And
they are.
Not, more self-deprecating, more modest.
Down to earth and...
Yes.
And...
Normal.
They're on time. They're not trying to be...
No, they're not. It's true. Yeah. It is so true.
And
I
Robert
found
Fust,
that.
of course, was previously a set designer, worked on the Avengers.
That's why the sets look so
that's
beautiful.
Why the sets look amazing.
All that wonderful Art Deco.
And dare I say, part of the decline of Hammer, besides the finance, was to do with the loss of their key creatives, of James Robertson, who was one of their production designers.
True.
Of course, James Bernard on music.
James Bernard, the music. What
once
music?
they went, you'd see the decline happening.
Yeah.
Whether that's coincidental or not.
I don't know.
It may all be tied in with finances, of course.
Well, some of it was, but it wasn't all that. It's the terms Warner Brothers wanted from him. And he didn't want to
He didn't want to compromise, maybe.
No, he didn't. And this is why Satanic didn't come out for 2 years. They put a hold on it. Yes. And Roy Skeggs was then trying to buy Hammer. And with a chap at David Goodenough, who had Bray Studios at the time, they had the money. And at the same time, Warner was still dictating, so they didn't get to buy it, but they had the money to buy it outright.
Wow.
And this is why when Roy went to America and had the series out there, and that's how that came about, and then he still tried, and Warner said no. And they had all the rights to all the Draculas, so that was really, really the downfall.
Yes.
And I would think... possibly, because that was what was that about 75? When was that? 74? Any of the Hammers.
Any of the Hammers?
Yeah.
No, we're around 72, 73 at the moment.
So what had started in the States was the slasher film.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think different special effects, not practical special effects. They were starting to use gadgets and clever stuff that we didn't have. Maybe the start of the CGI, but they had the slasher films, and I think the slasher films, in a way, was maybe also to do with the downfall, because I think the Hammer films, beautiful as they were, beautifully filmed, fantastic actors, directors, sets. I think maybe they didn't have the commercial appeal with young audiences, possibly.
Absolutely, quite possibly. And of course, most of them were period pieces.
Yes.
And then they'd try to claw their way into... Well,
With the modern one,
and
yes.
they become modern and didn't quite succeed in that.
Not really, no.
No. So we've mentioned some great directors here. We've mentioned Robert Foos, we talked about Brian Clemens. We only had one picture, but a very talented man.
Super.
Alan Gibson we've mentioned.
Yes.
So Pauline, I mean, you can both answer this, but Pauline first maybe. What style do you gravitate to? If a director's there, what styles have you encountered? Have you encountered bullies? Have you encountered, obviously, Robert Foos was a gentleman and a humble man?
Both.
Both.
We all did. It depended on the director at the time and his behavior and attitude.
And what did you respond to best?
Just explain to me what you want and then leave me for a minute to take it in, make changes myself, let me give you back a feedback and say, do you see this scene with me doing this, and this? And then I'm ready to go. Yeah. If not, do you want me more aggressive?
Just common sense, really.
Yes. Very much so. And that way you take in, maybe because we were all on stage, we get used to being told, don't like that bit, you want to change it. How about pretend he's there but turn away from him. You're talking to somebody else over here.
Yes.
Sometimes that would seem rude, but at the same time, yes, it worked better this way. I know you're there, and I'm talking with you, but my body wants me to move this way.
Yeah.
And sometimes...
Are you relating to that, Caroline?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I really, really am. I mean, it's obviously has to be a collaboration, insofar as me. I don't respond very well to shouty. I don't. I would withdraw and feel quite. I think most actors, if you look at them, I was watching a wonderful documentary last night on Brian Cox, who I think is amazing.
Yeah.
But even he, and he's superlative, gets insecure with his acting. And I thought there's a book he's got out called Down the Rabbit Hole, which I definitely want to read. Yeah. But I think he's. I think most actors, if they're honest, are insecure. It's a strange thing to choose.
So this is kind of interesting because you preempted my very next question.
Okay, and I'm dyslexic, so therefore doubly insecure with stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, quite.
So you preempted my question, and both of you can answer it. Let's stick with you first, Caroline. Do you get nervous? Have you always got nervous? Have you overcome your nerves? And if you do get nervous, what's your mechanism for coping with that? Just before that clapper comes in and we're going to shout action, what's your process?
I do get very nervous. In fact, in the beginning, when I was much, much younger, I didn't feel that fear because I had nothing particularly to lose. I just started, and who was I? I didn't, I had nothing to compare myself to, basically. And I think the more you do, the more you expect of yourself.
So 50 years down the line.
Yeah, 50 years down the line. No, it's 50.
No.
To do the math. No.
It's true. Still get nervous?
More so now.
So totally what you said.
More so, and especially I do these. It's a thing called talking pictures that I do, which is fine for the television. That's fine because there's only 4 of us there. That's fine. But again, it's the reading thing. It's the dyslexic thing, which I'm so insecure about. But when I have to do the live shows, which we've got 2, we've got one in Monmouth in July, and then one in Christchurch at these great big theatres, and you're interviewing Michael Parkinson, Sarah Miles, you're interviewing these legends of film. I am terrified. In the 2 weeks before, when I'm doing my homework, trying to see, questions to write, what am I going to say? I want to make them shine. So yes, it's got far worse.
But you've been with some huge stars, both of you.
Yes.
How do you cope with that? How do you get to the point where you can actually relax and act?
You don't really relax. You just sort of pretend to be. You change. It's like coming out here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I needed to quickly run to the bathroom. I need to go and look, see if my face is okay. Did I brush my hair? And that's the nervous part of it.
Yeah.
That's taken over.
Yeah, it's true. It's you, what it is, and I think, and I'm sure, I don't know if you feel the same, Pauline, but there are times when I know, especially in the beginning of my career, that I really didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I was going through the motions
right.
and saying the words, and I could remember much better than the words. But it wasn't until I started doing Dracula AD that I could actually tap in and say, yeah, I get her. I understand what this girl is about. And I can actually feel what she's about. And so therefore, that's the rush of thinking, yes, I've got that right. But very often, I haven't had that. You know, it's been like lying on film. You know what I'm saying? Because you know that you haven't touched that part of you. But I find with being much older and maybe more experienced, you can tap into that much more now because you've lived a life.
But you've lived and you've experienced other things. That's what I feel.
It's true.
And sometimes I can be empathic with someone else because I know what they went through, and this part says, and that helped me in the past, and I'm sure that's how Caroline and the others feel it.
It is. It's kind of putting yourself, if you can, and it's very hard to get there. I can't say it's easy.
No.
You know, I find it really hard to actually get there and think, yeah, actually, I've got her. I did that recently with a film called The Haunting of Margam Castle. And even the night before, I hadn't got her. I didn't understand her. I couldn't get her. And then suddenly, I stayed up. We had to be up at 6 a.m. for makeup and stuff. Shot in Wales. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, I was wide awake and I was doing it. And suddenly it came and I thought, I've got her. Yeah, I suddenly got her. I could understand her, but it's hard to tap into that.
That's great. Thank you. So, Pauline, you've touched upon it, and obviously you've had this incredible long friendship with Caroline. Have you encountered, on the whole, a good camaraderie when you're on set? And have you established any other long-term friendships over the years?
I did with Jack Douglas, my friend.
Don't go drinking with him.
I liked him.
We did a play for about 6 months together. So by the time I got onto the carry-on, he was there, and he just said, "Oh, come on, girl, let's go and find the bar." So I said, "Why?" He said, "We've got to talk." And that's what it was. And then Jack, he went, by the time I walked onto the set and I saw the others, because they were not there at the time, there was that rapport in it. It's like...
You felt safe.
Yes, because he was going to tell me.
You felt safe.
And his eyes made me light up because I felt there's somebody here I know very well.
Yeah, it's true.
Barbara I had known because of my husband, but he had worked with her many times. And it's like this morning, Caroline walked in and it was...
Yeah, it's just safe. It's a safe place.
It is, and it's a warm place as
very
well.
warm.
And I'm going to bring this up because you mentioned it earlier, Bernie Breslau as well.
Oh,
was
Bernie.
he lovely? I didn't ever meet him. Was he lovely?
He was absolutely a darling. He was wonderful. He would come, and we had a scene where we were in line for the beauty pageant, and he would just take his finger, poke me in the back and say, "Smile." No, he was absolutely a fantastic person, a man who shared.
Yeah.
He really would. I mean, he had no problem just turning.
No ego,
and look at you rather than, he was supposed to be looking out, and he said, "No, I want to talk with you while we're wasting time, while they're filming, so we'll pretend we're talking."
Yeah, that's so nice.
And so we had lots of shots where he's looking at me, I'm looking at him
Because he's very tall, wasn't he? And you're tall.
And he was in this dress, but he looked really beautiful. So I said, "Are you sure you're not a woman?" And he says, "My wife will kill me if you continue with that." But he was lovely to work with. He was a fantastic person.
These are the stories you hear about Bernie Breslau.
Yes.
It was lovely. So we haven't gone far in time. We're still in 73 with the Golden Voyage of Sinbad.
Oh, yes, yes.
In which you play
Mariana.
And you end up marrying Sinbad.
I did.
What's this all about?
Well, yes, and John Philip Law's to-be wife or girlfriend was where you are, looking at us. And we had to have a very chaste kiss on the lips at the end, and she did not like it.
How did you get this part?
Through it was Brian Clemens had written the screenplay, and he suggested me for the part of Mariana, and then they said it was Ray, lovely Ray, my dear Ray Harryhausen and Charles Schneer, who was the producer. I went to meet them in Portman Square in London, actually, for a meeting, because Brian had suggested. And they said, no, we want Raquel Welch. We want somebody well known. We want an American. We want a Raquel Welch. And Brian said, no, come and see Cronus. He said, I've got some footage I want you to see of this girl. So that's basically how I got it. And they came. And I expect I was paid very, very little, whereas I'm sure Raquel Welch would have wanted millions. So maybe that was the hey. But anyway, I got to play her. And she was
fantastic. Massive.
But at that time, we really didn't make much money.
Very little money for Hammer.
We didn't get repeat fees.
No.
We just got a flat fee.
Nothing.
And that's it.
The Americans got the SAG thing in, didn't they? And then we started to get a little bit. But we got no repeats. They showed it, no.
And not even for television either.
No.
We didn't get any of the television shows.
It was a buyout fee you got.
Completely
bought out. And that was it.
Staying with that, the Sinbad, what's your fondest memory?
Oh,
you probably got loads, but
I have so many on Sinbad. But it was a joy. We shot in Madrid, so I was sent out to Madrid, which was lovely. We did all the interior stuff in Sevilla Studios, which was a little bit out of Madrid, and then we did a lot of the stuff in the mountains. So we'd go out in the mountains. We'd do days out there in the mountains, and then come back and stay in Madrid. We also shot in Mallorca. So a lot of the scenes that, if anybody's seen it, a lot of the sea scenes are done in Mallorca, and the scenes with the figures, like Mount Rushmore on the mountains, which of course weren't there. Ray put all of that afterwards. In fact, Ray would do the special effect directing, and Gordon Hessler was our dialogue director. So as soon as we'd done the dialogue, then Ray would step in and say, now I'll show you the, he was a wonderful illustrator.
He'd worked with Vincent quite a few times.
Yes. So he showed us these beautiful drawings that he'd done of the creatures he wanted us to be up against, pitted against, or in my case, it was the centaur.
Yes.
So he would he took a year after the principal photography to put together all the wonderful mythical creatures that he created. He, really literally created by himself. He did it all by himself, stop motion.
Fantastic.
Like a moving sort of the cartoon,
kind of the
shot by shot.
Almost.
I call him the godfather of the special effects. But yes, so many happy memories of working with him. And
fantastic.
I stayed friends and am a good friend of his daughter, because my stepdaughter went to school with Vanessa Harryhausen. So I have quite a big lot to do with their, it's the Ray Harryhausen Foundation, and they have a wonderful exhibition coming up. In fact, we're going up to Glasgow. Yes, Glasgow. It's the 50th anniversary of Sinbad, and they're showing it up there. So that should be quite fun. Yeah, very wonderful memories.
I'm going to have a little rest and ask Spencer if we can see any hands going up for a question or two.
Yes, we have. Mr. Steve. It's such a pleasure to meet you. My first bodyguard, Fire Up, was the first film I saw the cinema.
You must have been about 12. How old were you? Very young.
I'm born in 1966.
Oh, you baby. Yes.
And Pauline, of course, was attracted to films my dad had never seen when we were that young.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Now, Pauline, I just wanted to know, what do you think out of everything we've done when you did for both of you, what do you think we took the greatest achievement?
Cuba. I loved Cuba with Sean Connery. And Jack Weston. We were in Spain. I also had to climb on a window, which was not good. It was on the 10th floor.
Whoa.
And end up got caught on the window, in the window. And half of my clothes was, I'm always trapped for some strange reason with clothes.
Always losing your clothes.
And they had to get someone to come and cut my
Unhook
top
you.
and unhook me. And then I came down. And Cuba was supposed to have been shot in Cuba, part of it in Havana. And there was a problem there. So we went to Spain instead and used the casinos out there. And I really, really loved that because Chris Carradine and Jack Weston, Denham Elliott, and with all my friends. And it became really lovely. So I find that as an achievement. And I loved every minute of it.
Fantastic. Caroline, did you want to?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I see.
Come back if you.
Yeah, I just feel lucky to have blessed to have done the work that I've done and to have worked with such great people. I would say Cronus would be very close to my heart because she was the most like me, in a way, like me. But a Bond obviously was wonderful because it was such an experience having worked on tiny budget films and then suddenly to do this. And I had the pleasure to work on a film called A Talent for Loving, or Gun Crazy, and I worked with Richard Widmark, who was my dad's hero. He played my father. I played a Mexican-American daughter to Richard Widmark. And Cesar Romero, the original...
Wow.
The original, yes, he played my grandfather. So that was a wow for me, and I was only 19 at the time. But yeah, that was shot in Spain. So yes, I've had many. I just feel very blessed to have worked with some amazing people, and look back and can't believe it. Oh, Slaughter High, which was. Did you like that? It was directed by... Did you? Well, it's really weird because my husband wrote that and he directed it.
Wow.
It was, yes, he wrote it. George, he sadly died 2 years ago. So, but he's left that film. And when I go to the States, and if I go to conventions in the States, and it's usually very young people that come up, American couples, and they said, yes, Slaughter High, please. So I signed the Slaughter. I said, what do you like about the film? They said, oh, gee, we just like it because it's so cheesy. We love cheese. I said, oh, thank you. So yeah.
I've got loads more questions, but we're actually running out of time. We'll go back to
sorry.
what's left. No,
No, can we ask them a question?
Oh,
Of course
Can
you
I
can.
let
Go.
them? Okay. You want to ask the first one?
Thanks, Pauline.
Fred, can we ask a question?
Yes.
Exactly.
I've got loads of questions.
Go on.
If you want.
Unless anybody's got more questions.
Yes.
Yes, there's a
Yes.
lady. I like to hear from a lady. That's nice. Yes, from Roma.
Lovely.
Oh, it's
Too.
beautiful. I love her. Yes, it's lovely. I did 2 films at Cinecittà. We did Star Crash. We did that one with Luigi Cosi, and of course you know Profondo Rosso. Do you? Yes, of course. Yes. So we did that, and we did The Black Cat. Yeah.
Yes, times have changed, unfortunately. Times have changed, unfortunately. They do a lot of reality TV in Cinecittà.
I've heard that.
Since the Satchel Gangs of New York.
Was that done there? I love that film.
What happened in Flames? And after that, it's basically an enormous TV studio.
It was
Big Brother.
really.
They do the odd film there, but it's mostly.
But not because I mean it was so wonderful. That was in the 70s, and it was still. I mean, I know it had all the Fellinis and
They kept that.
they kept that.
And it's like an open-air museum sort of thing.
Is it?
If you want to visit, yes.
Yeah.
The setup in kept, but mostly it's being used for TV productions. My question: since you were active in when most active in a period of cinema where the standards for safety were slightly different. I was wondering, I think Pauline told us about a few hairy moments you had already, but I was wondering what was your most dangerous thing when you done on screen that you actually thought, or was it?
Actually, I felt pretty safe because I didn't have many situations. I had funny situations, but nothing that was that dangerous, with the exception of I did a television show, and I had to jump off a boat into the sea in Portsmouth. I had supposedly 2-3 people down there with a net to catch me, so when I go down, they would fetch me out. Worst swimmer, so you need to know I swim like a brick.
Oh no!
No, that was then. I always said that, don't want
Never
to
do
do
it.
that. And
God.
I said, let's just do the take. And if anything, we'll do it a second time. They were supposed to be there with the net because I'm supposed to go way down, and they'd pick up the film. They'd film on the water. Well, I went here and they were over there.
No.
They had to dive down while I'm going down because I am like this, an Eden line. And they fetched me out. I got out and they said, we missed part of it because they sent you up at the wrong place.
No.
And I went, are you kidding me?
So they hadn't filmed it. They didn't catch it.
They're not
done.
underneath because they were elsewhere.
That's terrible.
And I said, I'm wet. What am I going to do? And they said, it's okay, we will do it again. We will take the first part and then cut it, edit it, and then do it. And I went, I'm dying. At that time, they didn't mind. They poured me some cognac in a glass and said, drink that. And I went, almost died. The cognac alone would have killed me at that point. I said, give me some water, please. And I drank the water and I said, okay, let's do it now. Make sure, I want to see them right when I stand up on that ship. I want to see them down there this time because I'm not doing it.
No.
I told you one take and that's it. And I looked down and they were there and I said, okay, let's do it. And I kept thinking, I'm going to drown. They're going to kill me here. I won't see my mother. And I couldn't think of anything else. And then that fear came into play and that worked very well. So I did it and they captured it and it went very well. And then when I got out, they wrapped me in plastics and towels, and I was okay then. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got a
sorry,
quick.
go on, Carol.
Oh, sorry, I've just got a quick one. I'm just remembering you. We did a film called At the Earth's Core. And we had, it was with Peter Cushing and Doug McClure, the American actor. And we had some scenes where there were fire scenes, real. So what they used, these great big fire scenes. And there were certain scenes where I'd run off, my character, Princess Di, had run off, and Doug was coming to rescue me, basically, leaping across the rocks. That was fine. And then they said, well, we might use a couple of stunt people for this particular shot because it's going to have fire in it. There's a lot going on, explosions and fire. And Doug and I looked at each other and said, do we want doubles? No, we said, we'll do it. More fool us. Anyway, so they set it up and they said, well, we can't really rehearse it because we've only got enough, firepower for this particular thing. So we thought, okay. So we did it without the fire to start off with. I jumped across the rock, he jumped across the rock, and he was protecting me. And then he said, right, this was our director. And he said, right, so we're going to shoot it now. So get ready. Caroline, you're running along, you're screaming, you're running along because you're being chased by a fiery beastie. So anyway, I did that, jumped in, and Doug... No, in the meantime, okay, I was by myself. I was kind of clinging onto the rock, shouting, and then suddenly this massive flame came shooting right up past my head, and I was clinging against the rock, and my screams were absolutely real, and my hair was sort of standing up on end because the flame, it was the force of the flame made my hair stand on end. So that was, and then Doug jumped in and he kind of went, to kind of protect me. So we were both, I don't know if I, sort of singed. So it was really, it was, if you ever see the scene, it's quite realistic and the flames are that close to us. So that was that. And then I remember stunts in Cinecittà working with our wonderful chap, our stuntman, who said, because my character, Stella Star, was to be very good at karate. So I had to learn this with the stuntman. And they got the stunt people in. We kind of blocked it through. I'd done all my moves and he'd done his moves. And he said, right. And Luigi said, right, Caroline. He said, now. He said, on action, I want you to go. And you really go for it. You go and you hit, you do that. I said, right, Luigi, I'm fine. So, ready. We blocked it. It was fine. He moved away, blocking. Now, azioni, motove. And then, whoop, I went. And as I went, I hit the stuntman on the nose. And then the blood. And my character, Stella Star, was meant to be the best space pilot in the universe, burst into tears. So no, it wasn't fear. I mean, I was so upset that I'd made this poor man bleed, this wonderful stuntman. So yes, that was, my two little ones.
Thank you. Great question. I literally have got time for one more question that I need to ask because I'm just, as a collector, I don't know if cinephiles are naturally collectors. I don't know what the psychological link there is, but anyway, I'm a collector of pretty much everything related to movies and television. Have you ever been able to keep anything like those amazing costumes that Stella Star had from your movies? Any memorabilia that you may have been able to keep over the years?
You had to buy it.
We had to
You
buy
have
it.
to buy it?
Yeah.
Yes.
You didn't get to keep it.
So what did you
I
buy
didn't
and
keep Stella
Anything at
Stars.
all?
I mean, I had those were my boots that I wore as Stella
were
Star.
they?
They were my boots. So those were my boots. And I designed a couple of the costumes because the costume design had kind of run out of ideas. So I designed, but I didn't keep them. And I bought boots from, the boots from Spy Who Loved Me. I bought some boots.
Did you?
Yes,
Fantastic.
I did.
Pauline, anything?
I had to do a Galton and Simpson Playhouse, again with Freddie Jones. And when I had to walk in and I was supposed to be in this bar to meet Michael Cole, who played my boyfriend. And they sent me to get this fur coat. And I called it George. It was so heavy and big. And so I thought I had to have it. It was like big enough for a rug and weighed me down. And I said, I've got to have it. They made it. And so I got that from it.
Oh, nice.
And it's still there.
You
going
still
strong.
have it? Oh, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
That's nice.
That is nice. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. And thank you for answering all our questions so candidly. And it's been an incredible pleasure to meet you both. And I think we should all give them an amazing round.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will do